Hey everyone, Tiago with Classical Controllers here. Today we're going to be taking a look at this. This is going to be the NYXI Warrior, and yes, it does look really cool. If you're not really old, this is a GameCube style controller, Nintendo GameCube. If you're going to be buying the Switch too, and I know a lot of people are, despite the high price, that's going to have a new Switch on online mode. That you're going to be able to get GameCube games. And I know there are people that love the GameCube controller. Really, really, especially for like Smash Brothers and games like that for Nintendo. It's just a controller that people really, really like. They like that style. It's different. Like when you play with this, you feel that it's different. And this one, I mean, even though it looks like the same color as the original GameCube controller, we're going to talk about the features that this has. So this is going to be pretty much a modern controller with sort of that GameCube-esque design. So one of the big things about the controllers like this is that you can use them for regular games, but when you play a game that's maybe a little more retro or a game that works with this layout, it just feels so great. It's much better than using like a regular plain controller, for example, to play some of those games. So this is the design of the controller. Now, it does come in a variety of different colors, even though this one here, I would say is probably my favorite because it gives you that nostalgia, right? That sort of like GameCube inspired, purplish color. So that's really cool, with the yellow stick. And these you can actually swap out as well as we talk about the face. The most important thing, or one of the most important things, Hall effect sticks. You can hear the click. You'll be hearing the clicks throughout the video. I love clicky controllers. And that's certainly pretty clicky. And these are Hall effects, meaning that stick drift as a concern is pretty much out the window. And they're very responsive as well. So that's going to be definitely a primary thing that a lot of people look for. Like, okay, first thing, you like the design and you want to play GameCube style games. That's going to be sort of your entry point. And then when you know it's Hall effects, that just gives you a little more peace of mind. And they're very responsive as well. So we're talking about the buttons now. Listen to that. This is the D-pad. These are micro switches in the buttons, and I absolutely love micro switches. So this is going to be one of the modern touches to a GameCube style controller. And the buttons, the face buttons here, you have your layout. It's going to be, obviously it looks a lot different than a traditional Xbox or even a Nintendo Switch layout. But very satisfying buttons, very crisp micro switches once again. So in terms of just like the ergonomics and the clickability, as I would like to say, of the face, like that, this is like a pro controller, really. Like this is stuff you would find on, on controllers that you're going to want to go play like Call of Duty with or something, or other games that are, require like nice tactility. So that's really, really cool. And then obviously you have the other, regular buttons that maybe you use for stuff like the interface and to connect, the plus and minus buttons. And then you have the little face here. That's how you turn it on. The little NYXI symbol, which is, really cool. And then it pairs, right on up. So this is going to be a Bluetooth controller. Now, while we don't know the exact compatibility with the Switch 2, assuming that it's Bluetooth, and we know that some of the other Bluetooth Switch controllers are going to work fine on the Switch 2, it should work without a problem. But obviously, we have to wait and see when that comes out to see exactly if there are any compatibility issues, something on the side with Nintendo, or who knows, but it should work. And with the Nintendo Switch 2, obviously, getting the GameCube games online, just like they have the Nintendo and Super Nintendo classic games and Sega Genesis, that's going to be really cool to play GameCube games with a GameCube style controller. And not only that, it's like a pro style controller because of all the nice clicky buttons and things like that. So this works on the Switch currently, obviously, and of course the one that works with everything is going to be the PC. So you're going to be able to play this on the PC, without an issue. And on the PC, you have access to a bunch of potential games that work really well with this. And you could even try playing regular games with this. It might be fun, play whatever Call of Duty with this. Speaking of Call of Duty and games like that, the bumpers. Listen to that. As we get to the top. Once again, micro switch in the bumpers. Very, very good bumpers. Ergonomically, when you hold this controller, it feels very comfortable in the hand. After you get used to it being a GameCube setup, it's different than your traditional controller because you have your thumbsticks are different sizes. They're obviously inspired by that sort of GameCube aesthetic, but these bumpers are just as good as anything that I've used on any type of Pro controller. And obviously the triggers, talking about like Call of Duty or something, but I don't think you're going to be playing this necessarily in FPS games, but you could. Be interesting. It'd be funny if there was a pro gamer that was like the best in the world using this. Everybody would just use these style controllers if that happened. So, interesting thing about the triggers here. So you have the full lock or the full pull, I should say. If you're playing like a racing game or something, you get the full actuation, and it does have the little knobs on the back here, the little switch, where now it's a trigger stop. So when it does the trigger stop, it's not a micro switch. It's just literally a trigger stop. So it's not as satisfying as the bumper. It would have been nice if it was a micro switch. Some controllers do that, including the P1 Master, for example, from NYXI that we took a look at on the channel. That would make this obviously even more satisfying, but this is fine as well, and it gives you that short click. And when you're playing, you're not really noticing if it's clicky or not, right? That's probably more when you're waiting in the menu screen and you're just messing around. This will feel almost as good because at least it's a shorter actuation for the trigger there. And then on the back here, you'll notice that you have your back buttons as well, and this will also release the back buttons. So you can release it. So you can actually, release this. You can take it out, and if you don't want to play with any back buttons, and the controller in the box does come also with some. It's actually a pretty nice selection of accessories. So this controller just has like tons of stuff packed into it. Aside from the fact that it's a retro-inspired GameCube controller, I wish all controllers kind of came with the assortment of stuff that this comes with. You'll see you get the extra back buttons here. This is going to be, and you'll see you'll get something like this that you can put in the back. If you notice, this will be just basically, if you don't want back buttons, you just cover this and you don't have those buttons anymore. It's just going to be basically the little cover for it. It looks almost the same, except the back buttons have the little texture, and obviously you can use those for clicking. And then you get another little accessory box here. You're going to have obviously your USB-C to USB-A connection cable if you don't want to play with Bluetooth or something like that. You do get an extra thumbstick if you want a thumbstick that's closer to the one on the right. Remember, it comes stock with the shorter or a little bit smaller thumbstick, but you can put one, it almost looks like an Xbox thumbstick to match the other one. It's also going to be the yellow color, so you get that theme still. But then if you want two thumbsticks the same size, depending on the game you're playing, you have that ability. That's really cool, as well as two extra thumbstick rings. And then you also have this, which is going to be an adapter for the GameCube itself. An interesting thing about this controller, with the wire, you can play on the GameCube. Like, that's a crazy feature, right? It's like Back to the Future, because you're going back and using a modern controller. Like, they didn't have this type of, listen to this. They didn't have this type of stuff back then, back buttons and the GameCube. Are you kidding me? Even though the Dreamcast did have Hall effect sticks, I think during, a little bit before that, still, you go back in time, literally, and you can play this. You got a GameCube, you like playing retro games. I'd rather play on this any day of the week than even the original controllers, because, older controllers, sometimes, even if they're working great, they feel a little bit dated. Obviously, just like, the Nintendo 64 had a rumble pack, you're going to get what they call the HD rumbles in here as well. So, and in the back, aside from the buttons, then that's pretty much all that's going on. You have the release for the buttons themselves, which is almost like a long paddle. The trigger switch there. There's no grip per se. There's no rubberized grip, but it is a nice high quality material. This controller just, certainly feels super solid, very well built. And like the design is just, if you guys see a lot of controllers, the design is just so unique and striking. And the fact that you can go back and use this on a GameCube controller, that might be fun for some people. It's fun for me. I like that. But I think probably even more people will appreciate playing on a modern system, even when the Switch 2 comes out with that GameCube collection. Oh man, imagine connecting this to that, like with a modern controller that's actually feels good and clicky. I actually got into controllers heavily when I started playing like Zelda Breath of the Wild, even on the Joy Cons, and I was like, man, there must be something better because this experience is kind of lackluster. The Joy Cons aren't that good. It's not very responsive. It gets stick drift often. That's why I started looking into different pro controllers. From the Switch, and then it kind of goes on to the PC side, PlayStation, Xbox. I like all controllers, every platform. They're all equally satisfying in many ways. So to have something like this with a retro feel that's modern, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna try to play even more of this, like Call of Duty. I did try other games, and it's actually a lot more fun than you would imagine. You have to adapt to it, obviously, because the buttons are a little different. But the controller's so good that it's really really fun. And look, people played all types of GameCube games with this style, and so it's definitely very doable. You just have to adapt a little bit. But if you want to play like GameCube style games, this is going to be excellent. The Nintendo always does great designs and ideas, and stuff like this kind of reflects that. It's a continuation of sort of that tradition of having something quirky, something a little bit different, but also very good at the same time. And there's very little like this, in the world, like controllers that are this unique. There's a lot that looks like Xbox controllers and even PlayStation controllers, but to look like a GameCube controller and be literally a pro controller, that's very very cool. So this is a controller that I think might become even more popular now with the Switch too, just because of the new GameCube games coming out. It's going to expose a new part of gamers to something something that was basically older than a lot of people playing it today. So very very interesting. So this is going to be the NYXI Warrior. Hall effects on the sticks. The triggers are analog, but they're also Hall effects, and micro switch buttons. Very satisfying D-pad. Trigger lock, clicky bumpers, buttons on the back, Bluetooth. I mean, you can play on the GameCube original and on the PC. I mean, what more can you ask for something like this? And it feels solid. Like, this is not cheap feeling. This is like, it feels substantial. If you guys could hold this in your hand, it's not heavy by any means, or like uncomfortably heavy, but it has, it has density, which is always, a pretty good sign of something that's very well built. Obviously USB-C, so you don't have to worry about like weird USB stuff. And you can use the adapter for the GameCube. So this is the NYXI Warrior. Definitely recommend this controller. If you see it, you probably know it's for you because you're going to be a fan of GameCube games, or you want to try something spicy, something different than the traditional controllers. I'm going to leave the link for this down below as well. I want to thank NYXI for sending me this to review. Remember to subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about this particular controller. Are you excited to use it on the Switch 2 or even on the PC right now? Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.